There is no more rugged breed of man than the New Zealand tunneler. A tough, phlegmatic individual devoted to his craft and dedicated to the task of digging into the earth so that people on the surface can enjoy the benefits of modern science. No tunnel carved through New Zealand earth has been a greater challenge than the giant Tucano project that is part, an essential one, of the Tongariro hydroelectric scheme.
This is Lake Rotorua, and this is where almost all the water comes to for the power scheme.
All the water for the Tongariro Power Development ends up in this reservoir, Lake Rotorua.
So there's quite a number of tunnels.
Quite a number of tunnels, yeah.
And canals.
Yeah. This is the old industrial complex of the Tongariro Power Development. For a period of 20 years, this site was a hub of activity. All the steel fabrication, machinery and vehicle maintenance was performed in one of a dozen buildings that used to be situated here. Now, derelict buildings and a few bits of old machinery are all that's left to help us recall the history behind this site. It was in September of 1964 that the government approved the Tongariro Power Development and ordered the construction to begin immediately. With a projected 32 miles of tunnels and 2 power stations, this was going to be one of the country's biggest ever civil engineering projects. For the next 20 years, a workforce, at times of over 2,000, would reside in the purpose-built town of Turangi and labor to bring this project to completion. The above-ground structures are a testament to the legacy left by the skilled workforce on the Tongariro Power Development. What few may know is that beneath the forest and rugged topography surrounding Mount Ruapehu is a huge underground power station and over 30 miles of tunnels. It took a workforce of Italians and Kiwis 15 years to build these underground structures, and as a result, the country gained a much-needed new supply of hydroelectric power.
Mount Ruapehu is the key to the water supply.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very large mountain, of course, and all the water that is shed onto that mountain ends up in the power scheme.
So all the snow melt and water off the mountain that's used in the power schemes is diverted through a tunnel.
All of that water ends up in the tunnel, either on the west side or on the east side of the mountain. It all ends up getting collected into Lake Rotorua, and then from Lake Rotorua it goes through the Tucano tunnel and into the Tucano power station. And don't forget, there's an additional bonus, of course, because all that extra water ends up going down the Waikato River and going through all those power stations. Up until the early 60s, all of the major power projects in New Zealand be done by the public sector. But then obviously with the start of the Tongariro Power Development, which was going to be a really big chunk of work, a lot of money involved, the private sector showed a lot of interest. They wanted to get involved. So a political decision was made that about half and half of the work would go to the public and to the private sector.
In late 1965, the government invited tenders from New Zealand as well as international companies specifically for tunneling contracts. The government made a controversial choice in awarding the first tunnel contract to a foreign company.
The first private company was Cadelfa Cogifar. That's an Italian firm. That raised a few eyebrows, of course, because obviously the New Zealand contractors thought that they were going to get it. But it went out to a tendering system, and obviously they must have had the cheapest price. And they had good credentials. They'd done a lot of tunnelling work in Europe.
So the first company to get a contract tunnelling was Cadelfa from Italy.
Yes.
And then a New Zealand company got...
Yes, a New Zealand company, Downer and Associates. That was the Takanu tunnel. And then later on, the Ministry of Works got involved in the Potu tunnel because their tunnelling workforce had built up over the years, and that was a job for the Ministry of Works guys.
The tunnel contract to the Italian firm Cadelfa Cogifar did not go down well with New Zealand companies or the unions. The Federation of Labour challenged the government policy of importing Italian labour. Finally, an agreement was reached in March of 1967. By mid-year, the Italian consortium began in earnest on the two Whakapapa-Whanganui tunnels.
The tunnel starts in there. It's underneath the screens. The screens hopefully keep the very big boulders from going down the tunnel. This is a stream bed intake. So in other words, the river comes along and drops through this ginormous gully trap and into the tunnel. And the tunnel starts just up there. And this was the original adit which got them into the tunnel workings, and they worked from there.
This is the Whakapapa tunnel. So this was your tunnel?
Yeah, we done a fair bit without steel. Yeah, Whakapapa tunnel.
So you did quite a bit without doing the steel sets?
Yeah. Good rocks.
The rock was good?
Was holding properly.
Holding properly. And how do you test the rock? How do you know it? It's easy to see that the rock is solid?
Yeah, the way you blast.
The way you blast.
The way you drill it, the way you blast, you find out the rock is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, man. And what's this machine here?
The Whakapapa tunnel was a long one. Now I can't remember the length of the tunnel. I can't remember how long was it. It was a long tunnel.
And you worked inside the tunnel?
Yeah. Inside, outside. Depend.
What jobs did you do in the tunnel?
If they need me in the tunnel, I was in the tunnel. Otherwise I was outside doing something else.
Did you do the blasting?
Oh yeah. Oh, blasting every day.
Tell me about the blasting.
I told you about the blasting. Those days I was strong. Today I can't lift up a box of Polari jelly. A box of jelly is 20 kg. I can't lift it up to you anymore. And we were using 6 boxes every shift.
Dangerous?
You got to use your head. Any job is dangerous. But if you know how to do it, it's no problem.
What about things falling?
If it's a bad country, you got to support it with a steel rim, timber and so on. But if the good country, Go, you don't need anything. When the rock is good, get a whip. Get a whip, push them, push the boys. But when the rock is bad, keep away from the boys. See?
I remember an occasion we were doing on the bench and the water was coming down, and all of a sudden the water sort of stopped, became a bit dirty, and you can hear the timber going crack, crack, crack. So you can, that's the pressure that goes on, and then we sort of went back down to the bottom of it because we were working on the bench. And we stand there and watching the set coming down, and not twisted and coming down. It was just, you know, you don't believe it unless you see it, what the pressure means, you know. And it was steel set 150 by 150, and they would just come down just like nothing, all right to the bottom. Then we had to, of course, we had to come back and start it again from further back, and using bigger steel sets and a little bit closer. I remember one occasion we were drilling. Always on the bench, and then a lot of a sudden we will find the water, and the pressure of the water put the machine back and myself right back, and ended up on my back.
Once we struck water, we couldn't go ahead. Then last maybe a week, the tunnel dried themselves out. But then you go. So another 500 meters, no problem, and then water again. Many times the water go the crescent and so on, go inside your gumboot and come out nice and warm.
Was it cold or warm in the tunnel?
Depend. Sometimes freezing and sometimes not.
Sometimes freezing, okay.
One stage it was cold. You couldn't do any more. Couldn't handle anything. Your finger was getting freezing. And kind of wearing the gloves, because after a while, even the gloves, you know, they get hard. You can't feel it anymore. Throw it away. Do what you can.
They struck very extreme conditions they were in very hard grey-wacky rock, and within feet they encountered this crash zone which was very permeable. The groundwater head was 1,700 feet of pressure, and it was firing the drill rods back down the tunnel from this pressure, and it became highly dangerous, and that caused a major hold-up in the construction of that tunnel while they put up a bulkhead, as it's called. It's just to seal off the full cross-section of the tunnel. Then they grouted into the country, which is pumping cement, sand, mix into the country to reduce the permeability. And once that was completed, they were able to then go back to more conventional tunnelling methods to get through this particular zone, which only lasted for a few feet.
Now, did the tunnel contractors such as Godolphin have their own engineers on the ground? And
Yes, but they had not experienced that sort of condition either before, nor had we.
Lake Roto'ara is the main reservoir for the diverted water in the power scheme. From Lake Roto'ara, the water enters the Tokano Tunnel, which passes through Mount Tahia to the power generating station at Tokano. Mount Tahia is a semi-active volcano. The thermal activity had already played havoc with the above-ground excavations. What the tunnelers found underground provided serious challenges. Downer and Associates, a New Zealand company with previous tunnelling experience was awarded the contract for the Tucano Tunnel. The tunnel superintendent was Vern Swan. Vern trained a whole new generation of New Zealand tunnellers during the Tucano project.
There's some real tunnellers, they were born that way. It's a gift that got given to them, same as I did. You don't know you got that gift until something happens normally. And there's always aftermath, you wish you'd done this and you wish you'd done that. But when you do the right thing, you don't hear nothing, because the guys are all alive.
He's a good jogger, Swan. He's straight up and down. You know, he doesn't, no mucking around, no nothing. If you don't shape up well, you know, he'll tell you straight.
Oh, Vern Swan made the biggest mistake in his life when he gave me a job. I think he still regrets it. A lot of people were terrified. They started trembling when they seen him.
Yeah, he's a good man all around. Oh yes, Swan was always top class tunneler, looked after his men. And
I knew everybody that was on that work crew. I knew the mediocre ones, I knew the ones that would give me a fair go. And I always told them, if anyone can beat me, I'll work for them. I wouldn't ask any miner or any tunneler to do something that I would not do myself. When we started tunnelling, we had reasonably good rock, well shale rock, but we had to support it. And then we hit the volcano, and we were working in extreme conditions of heat and humidity. And I prayed for water sometimes to cool the goddamn place down so we could work.
Oh, yeah, heat when we first hit that hot water, man, it was stifling. Yeah.
when we run into those conditions, it was really, really tough. Working in the sauna probably describes it best. But we got over it.
The crews used to have cold water squirting on top of themselves, you know, to spray themselves with cool water to keep the body cool enough to make it a bit more bearable working.
It's worse than being out in a hot day out in the sun because of, you know, the humidity, you know. But you got through it all right, you knock off and drink plenty of beer and fucking ready for the next day.
What fellas did, they did lose weight a bit, you know, because it took them 3 months to get through all that. So they did lose, you know, you sweat a lot, but, you know, the fellas didn't mind that, they were all right. Some of them might have needed thinning down anyway.
And, well, they had to shut all the concrete and that down, back stuff, until they carried on and come to cold water to cool it down.
Because when they blasted it, the water just shot out, and it was hot water. So they knew straight away, well, this is not very good. And now after it, that's when the whole thing collapsed.
Tunneling is an endless process of blasting and then mucking out, which is the removal of the blasted material with a machine called the Conway mucker. Tunnel progress is determined by the speed of this procedure. Pat Hayes was considered to be one of the best mucker operators in the world. He brought this reputation with him to Turangi after years in the Manapuri Tunnel. His workmates in the Tucano Tunnel held him in high esteem.
He was a mucker driver, Pat. He's muck all the rocks and that out, and that was his job. He was a very, very good operator, Pat Hayes, because on those muckers that they had down in the Conways, they called them, they're not easy to operate, you know.
You worked with Pat Hayes?
I did work with Pat Hayes, and it was I'd say one of the pleasures in life. One of the nicest men I'd ever met. My dad actually introduced me to him. In my tunnelling days out here at Rangipo, he was my mentor, I suppose, because he taught me how to drive the muckers. And he was a very, very good mucker driver. He had had a world record for driving a Conway.
Now, when you say he had a world record, what did that mean? What?
Well, the Conway was an electric mucker, and everything was driven by chain, and it was the noisiest, biggest, ugliest thing you could ever see. But Pat, because it was all driven with your feet, you had to stand on pedals, and so you were like an octopus. And Pat was just natural on it. He was brilliant on it.
So there's quite a skill involved.
Very
in
much so.
driving
Yes, very much so.
Yes.
That he had a world record. He could muck out a face unbelievably fast.
It's all done by feeling. Pressing a lever here and pressing a lever there. We're all doing it all by feeling. Every job was timed. The drilling was timed. Loading was timed. The mucking operation was all written down on times. And if your time wasn't up to scratch, they let you know. And I'd like my times to be less than anyone else's. As far as being the best in the world, that was Downers. That's what Downers sort of me, but worldwide I don't think I am really. There's a lot of good operators around.
Tell me about the hole through.
The hole through?
You know, the excitement. I mean, yeah, just tell me about the day of the hole through.
Yeah, well, our shift missed it. You know, there was a few wages and they used to say what time in it, but other fellas were too tired around, you know, they bloody, you know, they pull a short round, so their mates on the next shift will get the hole through. I think a fellow Manu, Winnetana, I think he was the first to go through the hole. Yeah, he was from up Mahia.
So you sort of rigged it a little bit.
Oh, not me, but other, yes. But they were like they had the camera there and whatever, you know, like there's a lot of publicity.
This is the Potu intake structure. It's designed to direct water from the Tongariro River into the Potu Tunnel and then down the Potu Canal before discharging into Lake Rotorua, the main reservoir of the Tongariro Power Project. The Potu Tunnel was a Ministry of Works project under the direction of resident engineer Kerry Scott. It took his tunnelers 3 years to build the tunnel, the actual hole-through occurring in February of 1972, 3 months ahead of schedule.
The Potu Tunnel was always my favourite part of this particular job, and it went very well indeed. I would say in the Potu Works we did keep to our programme. We were all motivated to get on with it. We could see that the work was getting on fairly well, and morale was high. Well, we had a great team of men. There were men who had been tunnelling most of their lives, I guess.
Bill Parsons was one such man. Bill began his tunnelling career in 1926 on the Opunake rail line. His whole working life was spent underground.
I spent a lot of years underground. I was a lucky person. I worked in the underground tunnel, and I realise today that all our power projects are important. During the process of construction, that may have had a different idea, but today the fact that it is complete, I am definitely of the opinion that it was It was a project for the country. That is why I would say yes to it again today.
Putu Tunnel, really it was incident-free, and it was unlike the Manaio Tunnel, which gave us all sorts of problems, although it was a little tunnel in itself. And I suppose
April 24th, 1974, dawned to what looked like to be a normal day. Mount Ruapehu was splendid in the morning light. Hours later, the mountain erupted, spewing ash in all directions and sending a flow of mud and water down the southeastern side towards the desert road, unbeknownst to the Ministry of Works crew working in the Manaio Tunnel.
We were on midnight to 8 shift, and we were working right up by the drop shaft, grouting and all this, and we come out. They were about 3,000 feet in, and then come back out. We come back for smoko, and we were having smoke. I never heard any noise or anything. So we come out, but we saw the water. Shooting straight out of the tunnel. Oh, that was scary. And all our stuff was coming out. Well, we left one of the locomotive inside there, and the trailer on it, and it brought it right out, and the rocks behind it. 3,000 feet. That was just where we were, down the tunnel. And when we saw it, we just looked at it, and the boss said, "What are you standing looking at that? Get those vehicles up out of the road."
The men had just finished some concrete work that had taken them beyond the time of the normal smoko break. Otherwise, they would have been back in the tunnel and caught in the flood, with the subsequent dire consequences.
This happened a half an hour later, we would have been gone. Yeah, every one of us. What helped me through everything is God. The Lord is in here of you. He'll protect you. He'll guide you.
Whether it was the hand of God or simply just good luck, no lives were lost. The tunnel work was shut down, and weeks later, the crews began the long cleanup.
But it wasn't all that bad. It just sort of gave it a cleanup. Saved us cleaning.
In spite of the close call at Manaio, during the 20 years of the construction of the Tongariro Power Development, the safety record was remarkable. Tunnel construction took men beneath the ground to some of the most hazardous working conditions imaginable. The safety record must stand as a testament to the management of the major construction companies and the respect for unions and their labor force. What were the choices that got you into the tunnels, Guy?
I didn't have any choice actually. I was working down a power station at the time with the riggers on the cranes, and one of my overseers came along, said how would I like to transfer underground. I had no idea what was going to happen, no idea what was going on. I said, yep, I'll go. Have a look. Yeah, I was a little bit scared when I first went in, because I think around here all they talked about was ghosts and
everything, and I was a bit scared being underground. But once I got used to it, which wasn't very long, and then there was no fear at all. There were a lot of challenges when you hit the bad ground where all the water and sand and you get caves in, and you got to timber the whole place up. But it's every day like that is a challenge, and it brings the skills out in you, I suppose you could say. And these ones in the tunnel, this bronze award, our crew, we worked 2,000 man hours. That was between the shift. There was 6 of us on our shift, I think it was, yeah. 6 of us, and that's no accidents in that 2,000 hours. And the next one over here is the silver award. That was for 6,000 hours without any man-hour accidents at all. And that's not too bad, 6,000 hours without an accident. I think the whole company tried to do the whole job as safe as possible, but I think they just try to drum it into us with the union and all their staff and try to get the men working safe.
I remember our boss saying to us, when we built the Takani tunnel, he said, okay, it's a 5 kilometre tunnel. He said we might just as well build 5 coffins, because the overseas record is that for every kilometre of tunnel you drive, you're going to kill someone. Yeah, tunnelling's there's a lot of obviously teamwork in tunnelling. It can be a very dangerous occupation, and the guys have got to really look out for one another.
Teamwork was important for safety, all right, yeah, timbering and all that.
And how did you look after each other? You know, because so many things can go wrong.
Oh, yes, well, I suppose that's where the teamwork came in. You made sure that there was no loose rocks, before you start timbering.
Safety is the thing, isn't it? If you know how to be safe, which they teach you, it's good as gold, you know. Don't do anything that is stupid. Don't do anything that you think that someone's going to get hurt. Or if you see somebody doing something, hey, you know, don't.
Yeah, well, you kept the watch out, you know, you'd see anything moving. Well, you'd say, jump back, you know.
Working as a team, that's the only way, you know, that we can keep a very safety record on the job. You know.
And as it turned out, it was a very good safety record in the tunnels down here.
Oh, yes, we have a very good record. We never lost anybody in the face.
Why do you think that was? They were very safety
conscious? Yeah, everybody together. You know, everybody was sort of thinking for themselves and thinking for the one they work to next. Yeah.
The Italian tunnellers were no less concerned about safety. For extra insurance, they looked to their patron saint, Santa Barbara, who looks after anyone using explosives.
Santa Barbara. He's a legend, hey. She was a daughter of a king around Egypt in somewhere. Can't remember properly. Anyway, the father noticed Barbara, she was a Christian. We tried to let him know, the father know. So what happened? The father got all these soldiers, tried to kill her. Every shot she was getting, a flare was coming out. So get another shot, another flare come out. They were wasting their time. And now, she protecting us because every rock comes down on us, it's a flare.
I used to go in the tunnel every morning to see how the shifts were doing. In those days we had only day shifts of about 10 to 11 hours during the day. I used to go in sort of early morning, mid-morning, and and sort of pray to Santa Barbara, was the protective saint of tunnelers. A little statue was located in each adit, in each entrance of each tunnel of her. And I remember I used to look at her, just get me out of here without any airbags or thing.
Comradeship down there, good work, good money, good hours, good environment. That happened in Auckland 1998. January the 28th, 1998. I was back in the tunnels again, and part of the roof come down on top of me. The Samoan boy, he moved away to grab a steel, and the machine started to get tangled up, and I just moved in to help the guy who was left there, and a big rock came down on top of me. Within about 8 seconds from the time I moved in and to come down.
After 6,000 hours without an accident on the Tongariro project, on another project, this time in Auckland, it took just 8 seconds to change Guy's life. Guy's story shows how hazardous tunneling can be. In December 1968, the contract for the Mofongo Tongariro Tunnel was finally let to Cadelpha Coachifire. Discord between the New Zealand Workers' Union and the other unions on site had surfaced once again. It took a year before agreement could be reached with the Federation of Labour. From now on, there would be more New Zealanders employed by Cadelpha.
From the new contract, Cadelpha have to employ 50% local. They approach me. What do you suggest? Maori. Employ Maori. What? You employ Maori. They are like us. They like to work, they respect, and they like to eat, and they are very friendly. You suggest Maori? Yes, Maori, that's it. He did.
Cadelpha became a multicultural workforce, eventually fostering strong links and a high level of respect between Maori, Italian, and Pakeha workers, which last to this day.
And how about the Kiwis and the Italians working together?
Lovely, lovely. Oh, the first week or so, and a bit hard, especially not the Maori. How the Maori used to go like that. But the Pakeha one, they were going a bit there. But after, no problem.
Quite a few Maoris, and they were one of the competing teams that started competing with the Italians. So we had Maori teams on one end of the tunnel and the Italians on the other, and they would every day check who was going furthest away, who was drilling the most. So it was a bit of competition there. So yeah.
In Turangi, was there rivalry socially between the Italian men and the New Zealanders?
They were to do primarily with the interaction between the Maoris and the Italians. They, I understand, had this habit, which was quite a common habit in those days in Italy, especially in villages and small towns, of looking at people in the eyes and sort of looking them up and down without being too refraining that. But the problem there was, of course, that there were Maori ladies present as well with their partners and their friends, and they kept on staring at them, which caused, I understand, quite a lot of aggravation, because it was something that they didn't know would cause grief, as it were. And the grief exploded more often than not, and that occurred over a period of a year, more or less, outside the pub, where they got involved into fights. That led, I understand, to a very coordinated effort made by the community, led by Codelfa, obviously, of understanding these different cultures.
The Italians got on well with the Māoris because their values were the same. Everything was based around family and food, and lots, the more the merrier. One of the biggest contributions the Italians made to Turangi especially was the food and the spices. All the food. I mean, the hangis that I do are Johnny's hangis. Now I tried to do that at Dad's. My dad's. We'd put one down over home in Rotorua. So I had the garlic, I had the rosemary, I had the oil, I had everything there, the wine. And I was standing there at the hangi pit, ready to put it on. Dad says, "What are you doing with that?" I said, "I'm going to put this on." "Not on my bloody hangi. You take that back to that bloody waitai and you can put it on this hangi, but you don't bloody come anywhere near my hangi with it." Oh, what a bloody racket. But it made a huge difference, and that's, I've always done my hangis that way.
Joking, like, you know. We were sharing everything. But you were one, yeah, tease here and tease there. And the same time, the bottle. Oh, yeah.
And we had interpreters to each one of us, and we were speaking to the parents of the children we would be teaching in our classes. So my interpreter was sitting quiet. I don't think it was Mr. Fabio, but it could have been. I don't think it was. I can't remember him. But oh, he was a mischievous man, and you could see it in his eyes. And he was sitting close to me. He put his hand on my knee and says, "Tell me, is true?" And I said, "Is what true?" He said, "Is true put man in pot, or nice eat, only," he goes, "they eat gumboot instead." And I looked at him and I said, "No, not true." Good morning, boys and girls. They were children, and children are children no matter what nationality, you know, or what country they come from. They want to play, they want to have fun, they get unhappy sometimes, they want mum and dad, you know, all those sort of things that children want. So it was no problem. It wasn't a big thing at all. All the problems that they thought they were going to have didn't eventuate.
And then when
So coming to New Zealand would have been a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah, well, it was a long trip in the first place. And leaving home and don't know nobody and don't know where I ended up. So when I got to New Zealand on the camp at Whakapapa, I was in dark. And when I got up in the morning and opened the door, I saw a big paddock and a lot of sheep. And that was it. So,
oh, is that right? Yeah. There was a paddock of sheep?
Yeah, very sheep. And yes, I did cry quite a lot in the first couple of months.
You catch any fish yesterday?
Yeah, I caught 3 fish yesterday.
Oh,
yeah.
good. Good. And you always go fishing when you come home? That's
Oh
it?
yes, yeah, quite like fishing, yeah.
So you made New Zealand your home?
Yeah, that's quite nice country, New Zealand, quite like it, especially here in Turangi, you have the mountain, you have the lake.
And you obviously married a New Zealander?
Yeah, I met Ramona here because she's got a sister here, and married another Italian.
Married another Italian?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was staying with this Johnny, the Rose. And then, of course, occasionally I was going to see John there, and then I met Ramona there. And
very good.
Polly, what did Leilani's parents think of you?
Oh, at the very beginning,
Yeah.
usually tell you, what? Just like that. Here we are.
Mofonga Lake and Dam are situated on military reserve land just north of Wairuru. The dam was built to block the southerly flow of the Mofonga River from the Kamanawa Mountains. Water captured from the southern slopes of Mount Ruapehu via the Manaio Tunnel also helped fill the lake. Water from this reservoir passes through the 22-kilometer Mofonga Tunnel into the Tongariro River and eventually through the power station at Rangipo.
So how often would it be?
The Mofonga Tunnel had been awarded to Kodolpha Kochifar, and construction began in April of 1969.
And it was the longest water tunnel built, the longest tunnel built in the world for the purpose of carrying water in those days, from two adits. The Mofango entrance pointed downwards towards the Tongariro River at the other end, so there was an incline, and the approach, as I understand a number of those tunnels by the Italians, was to approach it from both ends, to drill from one end and from the other end, and then eventually meet, as they did, at the middle, or whatever is that, you know.
Mofango Tunnel was a little bit harder than the other one because they will go downstream. As soon as the pair go off, they have a big generator there. But by the time the fitter mechanic was there, by the time he was to that switch, to that one, was already 6 feet of bloody water on the face. Because the water was running down, see, running back.
And sometimes wet?
Oh yeah, very, very wet occasionally. I remember when we doing on the bench, we were working 6 hours, because mostly because of the rain. We used to have gumboots up here, little short trousers and coat and hat. And I remember that after an hour and a half, I was taking my gumboots off, put the water out, and then put it back on again. Because that's, this is how it was.
Both ends had water pumps at regular intervals that pumped the water out from these catch pits. If the power failed and we couldn't get the backup power connected, you would have a situation where the pumps would stop working, and in particular instances where the water was great, the ingress of water in the tunnel was great, you would have water sort of flooding at the end of the tunnel and then coming up upstream and flooding the tunnel. It happened a number of times, and of course you had to get the hell out of there.
And the loco, you always see the locomotive, the electric, always there. In case anything happened, they were jumping, the boys jump on the loco and go.
Swiss-made locomotives, they were running with huge batteries, as big as a 3-seater sofa, even bigger than that. So you had to get those out as well, and the people with them.
assembled at the outfall of the Tongariro Tunnel, and were put on this tunnelling train to go underground, and it was supplied with a flat deck with barrels of Italian wine and Italian food. All the dignitaries were there from around the countryside, and I would be guessing probably about 80 people would be involved in this particular function. And we go underground on the train where the joviality was being shared by all, wined and dined. We get through to the middle. There's about 1,700 feet of cover over us, groundwater, the ground cover. And we were sitting there in the floodlights, and the mock-up was made of the breakthrough into the tunnel which had been excavated from the Mofongari end.
The whole through occurred prior to the party, but then they reenacted it, if you like.
The senior personnel in Ministry of Works and Cadelpha were first to move through.
The Italians in Tongariro were particularly good at celebrating and involving the community.
The best memory, we didn't realize. We look one another, shake a hand. How do you say? Thanks to God, you know. And then when the news come, all the head come up. We broke the world record for safety, you know. 22 kilometers down the body go hit. That was world record.
In November of 2012, there was a gathering of 40 former workers of the Tongariro Power Project. Some of the men hadn't seen each other in years. The venue was originally the old Working Men's Club, now called the Tongariro Chartered Club.
This was a central hub for all the men to come and, you know, socialise and have a yarn with each other and see what's going on in the world. And
this place was jumping, you know, this place. Oh yeah, it was just fun.
Tell me how the club got started.
Well, back in the old days, back in the 60s, when the men were in Mangakino were coming down the river with the jobs up there, when the job came here, that's how it started, in the tin shed out the back there.
I'll never go again to watch rugby.
Him and I, yeah, we are foundation members now of this club. We built this club, you know.
When we first started this club, it used to be just down the road, but it was just an old garage. You know. We built it up from there.
So the reunion that we had, just, you know, going back.
Yes, that was something that I wanted to do because a lot of the old fellas are passing on. I've never really actually seen them all sit down like that and talk, you know, and tell great stories.
There was more cement went home than went on the job.
was he the same guy? Remember when they had Santa Barbara out at Tree Trunk Gorge?
Yeah.
And he lit all those explosives off?
There was,
Who was that?
There was that Yugoslav.
Mari. Oh,
Mari.
Mari.
Let it go in the village.
Yeah, and it blew all the windows out.
No, I think a lot of them came in with small memories and left with huge memories, you know, and some very, very strong rekindled friendships.
That'll be it. That was an old pet. That's Arnold. Roger.
We're all going to move out of here and go to the motu, and hello, the motu got canned and we're all out of work.
That's right.
When I started with Cadelpha, I was put into a game where I was the only one in that particular game that could speak English, so I picked up the Italian language quite well and fast. So I enjoyed it, we respected each other's culture, and we worked hard. They were very hard workers.
Everybody sort of was almost like one big family.
It was, yeah, it was lovely. It was united. The Italians came in, and the people that work here, they were just, they mingled together like they've always been there, you know?
Everyone here, didn't matter what category you're in, whether you're just a cleaner or what up to an engineer or whatever it is, we all mixed together. We're just like a full family.
One of the last remaining chapters in the saga of the Tongariro Power Development was the tail race tunnel at Rangipo. This tunnel takes water that passes through the Rangipo power station and redirects it back into the Tongariro River. The tunnel contract was awarded to the New Zealand company, the internationally recognized civil engineering firm Downer Construction. The tunnel management was under Brian Newsom, and the superintendent, the veteran Vern Swan. Vern could pick good men, and he found one in a local Tufari Toa man, Jim Ham. Jim joined his tunneling crew and soon got stuck into the underground work.
Yeah, that was the first experience in the tunnel for me with downers. Yeah, that was the first time I've been in the tunnel here, and I quite enjoyed it, although it was clumsy working. It was clumsy working until I got used to it.
No fear?
No fear. No, I was one of the lucky ones in the tunnel. The danger didn't seem to come my way.
The geological inspection report for the Rangipo Tail Race Tunnel was not favorable, and was a forewarning as to what tunneling crews might expect. Both the Waikoko Stream and the ancient course of the Tongariro River were parallel to and beneath the tunnel line. What this meant was that water was likely to be encountered.
Water is the great enemy of all tunnellers.
Brian Newsom, a highly experienced civil engineer, would manage this project from beginning to end.
The main challenge to the tunnel is the ground conditions, and effectively the closer you get to water, then the more difficult the conditions become.
Oh, well, there was plenty of water. It was just coming down like a river.
Effectively, if you got a time when it was an excessive wet condition, we had to go on to 6-hour shifts.
Oh, well, one part of it got flooded, so we spent quite a while pumping it out.
Doing many jobs where we have to use what's called well point pumping, which means you have to lower the water table to make the ground stable. Immediately you get water into an alluvial ground, it ceases to be, in effect, self-supporting and will flow on you.
There was a lot of water in the tail race tunnel. In fact, it got to a stage where they couldn't advance the tunnel because of the amount of water coming in, and to get around that, they built a timber bulkhead up against the face of the tunnel.
The bulkhead is done in effect to seal the face, and then from the bulkhead you drill in a series of 2-inch or 2.5, 3 inches diameter holes. You then inject a grout, which is a mixture of water and cement, into those so that it actually reinforces the ground ahead. It actually displaces the water which is in it and in effect fills up the fissures which are causing the problem. That allows you then to proceed carefully.
And there was one part of it there where we struck an underground river. Oh boy, and we made a platform for it to try and stop it. Even if you stood on it, he'd throw you up to the roof. That's how strong the pressure was.
Dana had a problem in the middle of the tail race tunnel. There was a big fault in the country just underneath the Waikoko stream, and eventually what they did was we did a bit of a deviation and then came back onto line again.
Now this particular project caused enormous challenges and difficulties. What about throwing in the towel? Was that even considered?
No. Once you've started a project, you never throw the towel in. It's almost unheard of in any construction industry anywhere. When you meet great difficulty and you overcome it by your persistence and in effect the skill of your team, in effect it does result in a feeling of achievement.
Were you proud of the crew?
Very proud indeed.
Being there and doing your part, and yeah, it was really good.
Sort of press a button.
Press a button there.
Well, I first came to Turangi in 1966. I was working in the Power Design Office in Wellington, so it was a natural progression from working in a design environment to coming to work on a construction job. So I worked there as the resident engineer at Tukanu for 8 or 9 years, and then came down to Rangipo for the underground power station. And of course that was probably the highlight of my career. The underground power station was a challenge from the point of view that it was only the second underground power station in New Zealand at the time. It was new to everyone. We'd certainly had experience with tunnels, and we'd driven a lot of tunnels, but this was a much bigger excavation, and we had the problems of working out how we were going to actually excavate the powerhouse and to support it. The type of men we needed to work on this job, there weren't too many of them around. We had some tunnellers, and they adapted fairly quickly to the working in the single chamber, if you like, rather than driving a long tunnel. They were working in a big chamber, but basically doing the same sorts of things. So, and we had young men, and they were willing to learn. I had a lot of people who I could lean on, obviously. I mean, there were a lot of older, more experienced people than myself, and they were a great help. And you know, there's an old saying that if you want to know the right way to do the job, ask the guys that are doing it. And I was a great believer in that. You know, we had guys there who knew what they were doing, and rather than say to them, you do it this way, you go and have a meeting with them and you say, hey fellas, what do you reckon? How are we going to tackle this? Well, I think we all had a feeling of pride in the work. I mean, obviously we were achieving something. There was something tangible there. There's nothing like having a job where you can say, we built this or we built that. That power station's there, and it's still going to be there in 50, 100 years' time perhaps. And so it's always there, and people can always have that sense of pride. I'm proud of the time I had in Turangi. If I had my time over again, I'd still be a civil engineer. I loved it. I loved the challenges. I loved the people, and it's just a great occupation. It's a great career. Engineering, working on power projects, love it.